Hi, I'm Drew Hutchison, and you're tuned to Local Bias. With me today is a dear friend, a colleague, a mentor, a teacher, May Ristich. May, thank you for coming on Local Bias. I'm so pleased to see you.
Hey, Drew, thanks for having me today. I am so happy to be here.
So it's, with COVID, none of us have seen each other for years, it seems. Like, we have all these different circles of people that you travel with, and I used to see you every week.
Every week, yeah, for
years.
So when did you start classes?
I don't even remember.
I don't remember either. I thought you're supposed to remember.
I don't remember that stuff. But I am so grateful for the classes that I took with you. There were meditation classes, spiritual development, and for someone who was raised as an agnostic,
okay.
I found that the classes you taught, they brought in different religious elements, which I was not necessarily interested in, but I found them to be beautiful. And so I'm grateful for that exposure in a way that didn't make me feel uneasy. It was because it was so inclusive. It wasn't like, oh, you have to believe this or believe that. It's like, these are avenues of exploration.
Yes.
And I appreciated that approach. And recently, you posted on Facebook that you're starting up some new classes, and they're going to be in person because you had been doing them on Zoom for the last 2.5 years or so.
2.5 years on Zoom. This will be my first in-person Blueprints for the Soul class on October 19th.
And that's up in Gill at the Renaissance Center.
Renaissance
off of Main
Center
Road.
in Gill, yes. We have our own branch, really. I've been teaching classes since 1988.
Wow.
A little creepy, huh? And the headquarters of the organization I work with is in Illinois. It's called now the Arc Meditation Center of Purpose and Joy.
Okay.
The owner is Sandy DeLiggy. The previous owner and mentor teacher who you knew was Rosita Rodriguez, who has since passed away. Right. So we're taking it, Sandy and I are taking the classes and the organization into this new century. Both of us have been teaching on Zoom for 2.5 years, which was, I said to you when I sat down, this couldn't last forever.
Right.
I think I'll just take a break for 2 weeks.
Right.
3 weeks. And thought I can do this. So, like anything else, I got really good at Zoom, even though I prefer in person. And the whole idea of what you brought it up, we wanted people to think about new ideas. It's not about following the ideas that I present or Sandy presents. And I always say, think about it, use the material. If it works for you, extra. If it doesn't, so be it. But I also say, if you can find a flaw, I want to know the flaw.
Right.
Because I know it works.
Well, and one of the things I really loved about Rosita, the founder, and really the architect of the curriculum.
Yes.
I'm sure that's been tweaked a bit over the years.
Yes.
But I took Blueprints for the Soul. So the intro classes are still called Blueprints for the Soul.
Right.
And I'm sure many of the same concepts are there. But you've learned through teaching that, maybe we introduce this type of meditation later. Right. Because meditating is hard work.
Meditating takes practice.
Right.
And also I say in classes, we get mainly adults, sometimes we get younger people, but it's adult education.
Right.
So that means that you're going to get homework and you got to practice, because every skill that you have now, you practiced over and over and over, then it became part of your life. Because my idea is to have what we present to you to integrate.
Right.
Instead of, a lot of things you go to, it's like, I want bells and whistles, and I want magic wand, and it's like, no.
Well, and the thing is, if you don't put the work in yourself, it's always actually, one of the things that you really taught is that to own your power.
Yes.
And that means being responsible. It's not somebody else's fault after a while.
Yep.
It's you put yourself in these positions where it seems like, why does this always happen to me? That's a great question. Why do you think that is?
It's all belief systems.
It's a lot of it is so much we see what we expect to see.
Yes.
And so until we can somehow go, oh, maybe that's not the only way I can see that.
Right.
But that's a lot of hard work, being able to, if you have never seen something a different way, how do you learn to see something a different way?
You gotta change the lens. And that requires effort. I was thinking, so say you had this, 8-ounce cup, and it was it had 4 ounces of water in it.
Okay.
So people would say it's half full, and others would say it's half empty.
Right.
So what's the lens? And do you want to change the lens?
Right.
And you can. Changing the lens of the way you see things is doable, but it requires effort.
Well, the brain is lazy. Basically, once it's been trained to do something, it doesn't want to spend any more energy than it needs to. It burns so many calories for what size it is. So, I already know how to do that. I'm always going to do it that way because I know that way works. I don't have to spend all this energy creating a new neural pathway. And yet, if you find yourself in your life being dissatisfied,
yes,
I'm not happy. I don't feel that I've made a difference, or I don't feel that, there's this existential question. Why am I here? And if you keep asking the same question, but not answering it, or answering it the same way, well, then you're spinning your wheels.
Yes.
And so it's uncomfortable to actually take a look and go, oh, I've been doing that to myself. Yes. I have self-defeating thoughts, or I have, for instance, one of the great, and here I am hogging the interview. I'm sorry, May, but
that's right.
I took the classes. I know what I'm talking about.
We want to hear the benefits. Drew's telling everybody the benefits. Go, people.
But what was really instructive, when many things were, but the idea of how we frame our thoughts.
Yes.
And so if you, for instance, don't want to smoke cigarettes, to say, oh, I'm not smoking cigarettes, well, you're hearing the cigarettes in
and all you see are the visual.
That's right. So no doesn't work, not doesn't work. If I told you don't think about a pink elephant, the first thing that pops in your head is a picture of a pink elephant. So learning how to recognize our self-defeating language in a way that you create positive affirmations about, it's not that you're quitting smoking cigarettes, it's that you're pursuing health.
Right. Right.
It seems so simple, man.
Well, it seems simple, but here's the thing. We've been socialized to, if I ask someone, name all the people in your life that you don't like and all the things you don't want, and it would go right down the list. So how about naming for me what you would like to do, all the things you'd like to do, or the qualities of people that you would like to have in your life? Mm-hmm. That's the framework that we get people to switch to.
Right.
It's all about what do you want, not what do you don't want or don't have.
Right. And that's tough.
Well, it's, we don't like change. The only constant in the universe is change. But that means you got to take some time daydreaming about what you want. And by daydreaming, you can bring it to life.
Well, and interestingly enough, daydreaming is a form of meditating.
It's huge.
And in fact, I count on it.
Yep.
I get some of my best ideas when I'm in the shower, not thinking about anything, and all of a sudden, when you're driving and you've always driven the same route, so sometimes you go on autopilot, which is not the right way to drive, by the way.
Correct.
But the thing is that then all of a sudden, I find that it's during those times where I'm not being intruded by anything that all of a sudden I can think things through a little bit.
Yes.
Because we're constantly surrounded by distractions.
Yes.
Especially with cell phones now.
Yep. And it's the speed of life right now. I mean, the pace of life is almost, unless you put it aside for a while, you really almost can't keep up, even though everybody thinks they can keep up.
Right.
So, I think the thing that's really of value is knowing that if you want to take responsibility for your physical, emotional, mental, financial, spiritual well-being, it's doable.
Right.
And does it require effort? Yes. I don't like to say hard and challenging,
right,
but it does require effort. And
none of us are perfect, so even if you work really hard, you're still going to run into obstacles.
Yes.
You're still going to have things happen, and it's hard to know sometimes where the lessons are or what the lessons are. But one thing that I believe, May, is that we are given the same lesson over and over and over again until we master it. And once we've mastered that, whatever lesson we each have, the good news is you got a new lesson coming down the road out of left field. It's like, what? Now I got to deal with this? But that's just part of how it is. That's how you grow.
Because you bring it to life for you. That's the thing. It's all about taking responsibility. There's a line, I think it's Richard Bach. The people and the circumstances in our life right now, we bring to us. What we do with them right now is up to us.
Right.
So that means that you could make a change.
And one of the ways that you change those also actually discerning who are you with. Are you with people that build you up, or are you with people that bring you down?
I love the quote. I think it was a movie star that said, how about every time you walk in the room, the person's eyes light up when you walk in? And I thought, that's the kind of people I want.
Right.
My mother was like that.
Well, actually, I remember one of the...
You'd walk in and she'd go, ah!
Right. One of the early homework assignments, actually, was smile at strangers.
Yes.
And of course, I got beat up by a bunch of old ladies. What are you smiling at me for?
You're always smiling, but you're a natural smiler,
Right, no,
so am I.
Right,
But
I
then
do
there
that.
are people who go, what are you laughing about?
Right.
I'd be like, hey, it's a good day, folks.
Well, isn't it odd when you try to make eye contact with somebody and they won't look at you? I mean, isn't that, well, don't we all want to like, oh, I see you, I acknowledge you, you give a subtle nod of the head?
Well, you do. Not everybody else is really as, I don't know, socially conscious or friendly or...
Well, but the thing is, May, I'm actually an introvert. I much prefer being alone.
Yeah, me too. Don't we both look like introverts?
Right.
No, we don't.
But the thing is in a social setting, that's the time to be social.
Yes.
And acknowledging another person with a smile, a stranger especially. I mean, I joke about, the women, chasing, but generally you get a smile back.
Yes.
And sometimes you end up having a conversation. In fact, on this program, I've run into people, not physically run into them, but I've come across people, let's say I'm ready to cross the street and I'm waiting for the light.
Yep.
There's someone right there, we start chatting. The next thing I know, they're sitting in your chair and I'm interviewing them.
Yes.
And I count on that because those are the connections that we need to make in our society, in our community. That's part of being part of a community. And I think that
law of attraction. You're really good at that. And you're also, the thing I was thinking about when I was on the way here was you have a natural curiosity about people's stories. And so do I. That's why I can listen to the good, bad, the ugly and just go, yeah, sure,
Everyone has so many stories. And I'm not going to say his name, but I was in About Music years ago, a record store in Greenfield that's since closed. And I was talking to a fellow that at the time was working as a reporter. And I was talking about, wow, everybody has a story to tell. And he was like, oh, there's no stories. He was so bored, he couldn't think of anything to write. And are you kidding me? You could talk to anybody and they have something amazing that you wouldn't have known otherwise. In fact, I think about when I'm driving around and I look at, oh, there's a house. Every single one of those homes, there are people living in that have had experiences I know nothing about.
I know. It's a lot of people.
It's a lot of people, a lot of experiences, a lot of wisdom. And in fact, the part of the conceit of this program is that you don't need to tune into the national TV in order to hear a story and to learn something of benefit.
Yes.
Being on national TV does not make you an expert.
Right. Local, I think, is really amazing too. And also, it's your natural kindness and curiosity that sort of brings that out of everybody you meet.
Right.
It's the win-win, because really, ideally, we are all alike in spirit, but we have really different personalities. As humans, we've been socialized again to critique the differences rather than we're all alike in spirit.
Well, I mean, we've been trained by Madison Avenue to identify with our stuff. Right. And so your status is based upon what clothes are you wearing, how nice are your shoes, what car are you driving, are you with the proper people? And we create a class system based upon our ability to consume.
Right.
That doesn't bring happiness. That brings a hollow feeling inside. Well, I gotta go and buy some more stuff. I'll feel better. Let's have some retail therapy.
Right.
So to bring it back to people just sitting in a chair in a classroom with other people.
Yep.
What I found really, because I did not grow up going to church, but I kind of felt that this was something that happened, is that when you have 15 people sitting there, all being quiet and focused, you get a buzz from it.
Yes. Yeah, it's that spiritual energy, that whole quote, we're human beings having a spiritual experience. No, we're spiritual beings having a human experience so that we can have beautiful spiritual experiences together, and then we can go have a beer.
Right.
And have a good experience too.
And then actually, and that's part of what I really enjoyed about the classes.
So
is it
down
kind
to
of,
earth. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
It
I
breaks
like
it down. We're not just supposed to go around being high and mighty all the
No.
time.
And we cannot
can't.
be.
That's not. It's not who we really are.
Well, we would like to say that, you could be this kind, compassionate person all the time, but once in a while, the temper takes over.
Right.
But then you got to go back to the peace and the harmony from meditation, because it's who you are. I mean, one of the biggest influences of the classes we do is really giving you a blueprint for the soul on how to uncover, recover your authentic self, or
Right.
you as the soul. And that's your connection through meditation to whatever, the force, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it. Everybody has that connection. So,
But you also break it down into different aspects of our consciousness.
yes, all the different voices.
So,
Yeah.
for instance, everyone knows what it's like to hear a voice talking in your head. I'm sure. If you don't, I'm want to talk to you.
Everybody
has a voice.
Everybody has the voices.
And so learning how to listen to those voices and understand, oh, that's my ego wondering what someone's saying about me because my ego cares about that stuff.
Being very judgy.
And being very judgy.
Because it just does that. Yes.
It's doing its job. We talk about the inner child,
or
the subconscious.
Yeah.
Well, you have to actually develop a relationship with yourself. If you're sad all the time, it's probably because there's a part of you that isn't being taken care of.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, we deny ourselves who we are.
Yes.
And so I think that it's instructive in the classes to learn how to listen to your own voices, own aspects of your consciousness, and to be able to then, oh, now I understand.
Yes.
This thing that happened when I was a kid was really traumatic.
Yes.
And I ignored it, and I papered it over, and I tried to, and actually I became a different person in fighting against it, and you can actually heal the past.
You can. And it's twofold what we do. One is really, really important to get in touch with the spiritual part of yourself. That's through meditation. But the other part is being a better parent for the inner child.
Right.
And in some cases, you get to the point where you're really being your own psychologist. It's not that you don't need extra help. Sometimes,
Right.
you can go for extra help. But eventually you get to the point where you really are your own best friend or psychologist or parent, however you want to frame it. So,
well, one of the things Rosita said to me that helped in that way, she said, it's none of your business what anybody thinks of you, Drew.
I know. That's a big one, isn't it?
And it's like, what do you mean? But once you actually keep going back to that, you have to go back to that all the time, because the ego will be like, oh, they don't like me, or they think I'm this, or they think I'm that.
A lot of people that won't like us.
Well, clearly.
People either love me or hate me,
There are
just
some
can't
people,
do anything about it.
I'm sure that I am like fingers on a chalkboard, or is it nails on a chalkboard? I'm sure that I'm like that to some people. There are some people, they just cannot tolerate being around me. It's
Right.
like, okay.
That in no way should affect your self-esteem, because it really has nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do with me.
That's their own stuff. Yeah.
And
we're in the midst of humanity, and everybody's carrying all that stuff,
Right. So tell me about these classes. When do they meet?
So we're meeting, this class meets October 19th.
Which is
Wednesday evening, 6:30 to 9. It's at the Renaissance Center in Gill. We have a website. The website is archmeditationcenter.com. That's ARCHE. My story's on there, Sandy's story's on there, all the events that I have and that Sandy has are on the website. And there's a whole detail about anything that we are offering. It's really worth seeing, archmeditationcenter.com. I have a phone number. You could call me. I'm at 413-992-8394. My email is on that website. It's easier to look at it there, because otherwise I got to spell every word, which everybody misses.
Right.
So archmeditationcenter.com is the place to look. So
Well,
It's a 12-week course.
yep. So every Wednesday.
Every Wednesday. We'll take time off for Thanksgiving and all the other stuff that comes up, but it's
Right.
mainly, every Wednesday evening. We cover everything from reincarnation to karma to working with your subconscious, how to meditate, who you are spiritually, big segment on relationships. Wouldn't it be nice to say that we never have a troublesome relationship, but there's always at least one high maintenance friend.
Yes.
And you want to keep that friend. So how about strategies on what to do, how to do, big talks on how do you make a shopping list for relationships? Most people don't even think of that. You look at your life and you think, I don't even really like anybody that's in my life. Okay, then time to make the shopping list.
Right.
Because what do you want? Not what do you don't want.
Right.
So that's
Right.
a big piece too. We do relaxation, stress reduction, exercises, concentration, very important, concentration exercises.
Well, and actually, so early when we meditated, it was hard to meditate for 5 minutes.
Yes.
And by the end, it's like, oh, I can meditate for 20 minutes and not even break a sweat. I mean, it's just like I'm very comfortable sitting there and meditating.
Yeah.
So that's a case of where you just have to practice.
It's all about practice. We work with affirmations, which you talked about, in the positive. I am healthy. That's where we usually start.
Right.
What else? Thought power. Okay, what are you thinking? Are you bringing to life what you want? Are you thinking through your decisions? Because ideally, we usually go with the emotions, which can work if you have a good life, but it'd be a lot more valuable to think through your decision making. How does this work for me? What's the worst that could happen? What would be good for me? It's really interesting, and 12 weeks is a good amount of time where you get an idea of whether this is going to work for you.
Right. And then you have further classes that add on.
Yep.
Because I took all of them, but I don't even remember how many there were.
There's 4 Saturn programs after the fact, which are, the Saturn program is really designed for the serious seeker, to help you get rid of baggage you got hanging around in there and really think about, how do I want to move forward now in my life? I think the thing that it's always, a lot of people when they first come into classes, they're really serious, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with being serious. But what usually comes out of it is much more fun and enjoying life more confidence.
Right.
You put joy and fun into your daily life, which is like, well, that's
Because you decide that you have to make room for fun.
yes.
And that's part of this Calvinist society that we live in.
It is our culture.
Yes, we're known by our works,
Yep.
and our works are manifest. Our money is the way of, if you're well off, then clearly you've done the good works,
Yep.
and that's the sign of favor from heaven. Or I mean, it's almost that basic on a subconscious
Yes.
level. And how absurd is that?
It just doesn't even make sense here in modern times either. So it's having a more practical approach to what do I want. And you also brought up when we first started about this: who am I? What do I want to be? That yearning is the spirit of a person looking for answers. Can I give you those answers? No, but I can give you a blueprint.
Right.
So that you can find the answers for yourself. Because you and I could ask the same question
And get different answers.
totally different answers.
So who can tell? So you can't tell me my answer. I have to ask that question and listen.
I would always do that Socrates method where you say, so give me the answer to this, and I'd say, so what do you think?
Right.
What do you think the answer is? And everybody go, oh.
Yes, that will be one of my memories of you.
And then I had someone else who, God, she argued through that whole first year of classes. We had a different format when you guys did classes. And because she wanted me to prove to her that what I was teaching her was the truth. And I said, I can't do that. What I'm doing is giving you a way to practice something that I know that works, but you got to make it your own.
Right.
You got to prove it to yourself.
And when that's the thing, is somebody can tell you anything, and they may be right. But until you understand it yourself, and you don't understand it yourself if you just accept it. You have to actually work at it to understand it.
Well, there's so many things out there now that are saying my way or the highway, and that doesn't work for me. I want people to really, really think for themselves and prove it to yourself. Because see, I do know it works.
Right.
Show me a flaw.
Well, I know it works, and I know that sometimes things don't work, but generally I can look back and say, oh, that's where I went back to an old habit.
Yes.
So it's just like, okay, well, dust yourself off, get up, take a look at it, and don't beat yourself up needlessly. I mean, that's one of the things that I think really helps, is we are our own worst enemies.
That's the lens you can change. It might be in the inner critic, because we're usually really hard on ourselves. Maybe give everybody else a pass.
Right.
So we can change that lens to acceptance, peace, harmony, balance. That would be like really cool. But that means you got to let go of belief systems that are rolling around in there.
Right. So for instance, when I drop a dish, it's like, oh, well, that sucks.
That's a bummer.
That's about as bad as it gets. I mean, sometimes I swear, but I get over it. It's not a tragedy.
Or you spill a glass of milk and you just hand your kids a sponge. Okay, let's clean it up.
Now, there is one thing, by the way, May, that's been happening lately that's really starting to irritate me. You know when you brush your teeth in the morning? I always get that drib of toothpaste down the front of my shirt. I can't wear that shirt now.
Bummer, huh?
So that's something I have to work. So I'm working on that.
It's called aging because you don't care anymore and you think, oh my God, I got to go out in public.
I'll change my shirt. But anyway.
It's an age thing. My neighbor came out the other day and she went, oh, now I have to go back in. I didn't even see it when I was in the house.
So if that's the worst issue you're having, you're doing
that's not bad, huh? No, I have that same one. That's why I'm laughing, because I thought, God, I got toothpaste all over my shirt.
And actually, one of the interesting things is that in the class, people share.
They do.
So every class has a different energy in a way based upon who's in the class.
Yes.
And then the stories they tell, we talk about people's stories, you hear things that's like, whoa, I had no idea.
You can learn so much in a group. I think the group, any kind of group classroom, whether it's regular school or what we're doing, is so valuable because lots of times you can learn. Someone will tell a story to go, oh yeah, I've done that. Ooh, I don't think I'm going to do that anymore. You don't really have to tell your story.
Right.
You just self-correct. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Well, I'm so thrilled that you're doing a new set of classes, May.
Me too.
It's something that has changed my life. I am a different and better person because of the classes I took with you. I feel so much joy thinking that there's somebody that may watch this and go, you know what, I'm going to give that a shot, and their life gets changed. Because if we are able to make a difference in one person's life, how powerful is that?
Yes.
Of course, the first person you have to make the difference in is yourself.
You got to start with yourself, yeah.
So thank you for coming on Local Bias, May.
Thank you so much, Drew. My pleasure.
And I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yes, we will.
All right. I'm Drew Hutchison. You've been tuned to Local Bias. My guest today has been May Ristich, and you can look her up at arcmeditationcenter.org. .com. And ARC is ARCHE, arcmeditationcenter.com. I'm Drew Hutchison. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks, Drew.